First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you in the audience in that we're going to be talking about today the fruits of a lot of work of a lot of people that have gone into getting the funding for the CREATE program. You'll hear about the WA1 project. It was funded with an infra grant, and you'll hear about 2 projects that were funded with CRISI grants. And this is the work that's going on over the next 12 to 18 months. So what the commissioner said and what the secretary said is now is your opportunity to build those relationships to figure this work out. And there's also some other work that's coming in behind that. This photo is indicative of the program. I'll give you a little bit of background on the CREATE program, of why the program exists. In this picture, this was taken at the ribbon cutting for our Englewood project, and here you have Metra now going over the top of NS and the Amtrak routes. And it's that separation of all that makes the program a success. And while now the people that ride that train, that Metra train, the train used to have to slow down to about 30 miles an hour at those diamonds, and it would take longer for that train to get to its final destination. Plus there's a conflict there, there's a big signal system there could be failures along the way. So now that train gets to its destination 3 to 4 minutes faster, and it's much, much more reliable. It also benefits the NS operation, which is underneath the Metra track, and it benefits the Amtrak operation underneath that track. So everybody benefits from that project. Amtrak told us this was one of their, it no longer is, it was one of their most delayed locations in the country. So thank you again for your participation here today, for being here, for listening and for learning. And thank you for your support of the program. Many of you and your firms and your primes have written letters of support for these grants that I talked about here a few minutes ago. Thank you very much for that, and we appreciate the support. Another thing I want to mention is safety. And if this was a pre-bid meeting, and there'll be one coming up in the not too distant future for the WA1 project, talking about the importance of safety, you'll find today and also in many of the documents you'll be seeing related to the CREATE program and to the bidding process, the emphasis on safety. We want you and your employees at the end of the day, the railroad employees, the people that live around these projects, to go home at the end of the day not via the hospital. In other words, that's unacceptable when somebody gets hurt on the job. And as was mentioned earlier, that's where the work will get done on these projects. And I'm just going to tell you that we see things around Chicago all the time. And you really have to care for your employees and understand the need for the employees to be understood and to help them understand the safety program and develop a safety culture within your companies. And I'll just give you one example. A couple years ago, I was going to a pre-bid meeting on 290. I won't talk about the contractor, but I knew the contractor was at the pre-bid meeting. And I'm driving over this bridge where they're repairing a deck, right? And you know what they do when you take out the concrete, when you're fixing an area around the expansion joint? What are you doing? You got a jackhammer, right? And there's concrete flying around. If you're not using a hoe or something with a jackhammer on it, this gentleman was out there with a jackhammer on. And what equipment should you have on when you're using a jackhammer like that individually? Basic. Should have a hard hat, right? Should have safety glasses, right? Should have hearing protection, right? Should have long sleeve shirt, jacket, pants, right? Safety boots. Who does not understand what I just talked about? So I'm sitting on 290 and there's Jersey barriers there, narrow the traffic down to 2 lanes. And I'm stopped in the traffic, right? And what do you think I see off to the side of this guy with his jackhammer? No safety glasses. I wanted to roll down my window and holler at the guy and say, get your freaking safety glasses on. You know, that is a huge injury associated with breaking and busting up concrete. That's unacceptable. And it's his fault. It's the management's fault, it's the company's fault, it's everybody. He wasn't wearing his safety glasses. They're all responsible to make sure that person is safe. And that's the way the railroads think about it, in that if you're not concerned about their safety, you don't care about the employees, you're not going to get production out of it. I mean, they're not going to listen to you. That is the approach you have to have. You have to care about employees so that those problems do not happen. And you'll be more productive, you have a better workforce, and that's the way the railroads think about it. And if you want to work for the industry, you need to understand that culture and how the railroads think about safety. And then the worst case is somebody swings a crane in front of a train and the train derails, right? I don't want to talk about derailments, it's been in the news too much, but there's huge problems associated, and those kind of things are unacceptable. So I can't stress this safety message enough. We'll talk about the project. This is a shot taken from one of the projects where we put some panels in. We'll talk about the CSX project a little bit. We'll talk about the UP project. We'll talk about the NS project here in a little bit, and hear from Metro if they have some things to say for us. A little bit about Create from an overview standpoint. The project is 70 projects. We've completed 33 of them, and we have a lot of them under construction right now. The big thing that Create does, it eliminates those conflicts, like I was showing in that first image that we put on the screen here. And that helps improve freight. It helps improve the passenger operation. It helps improve the flow of traffic. It reduces pollution. It reduces noise. I mean, they're just all kinds of benefits that contribute to the benefits of the Create program here. And a lot of it is time, but a lot of it is also the environmental. And we consider ourselves very good stewards of the money and very good stewards of the environment. One of the things that goes on within the program is IDOT has a lot of oversight. And two of the things that IDOT does for us is they monitor the financials, do a very good job managing and monitoring the financials, and then they also help us manage the environment. And so we use a process that IDOT developed to manage the environment. And so a lot of the things you'll be seeing in terms of requirements regarding environmental, et cetera, is related to that oversight. And then on top of that, we have the USDOT that is a partner with us. We have embedded in the program a full-time representative from the Federal Highway Administration, also a representative from the Federal Railroad Administration part-time to help with oversight on the federal side, because we have federal money, we have state money, we have county money, we have city money, and all of that comes together, and no two projects are exactly the same in terms of how they're funded. And we want to make sure we're good stewards of your money, the private money, and also good stewards of the environment. The other thing I want to say here, we have an amazing partnership. I mean, it just absolutely, if you've not heard about it, that's our fault, but we have an amazing partnership with the city, the state, and the county. And it doesn't exist anywhere right now in the country, although what's happening now is people are starting to figure this out. I guess the word is getting out, and we know that other parts of the country are starting to figure out, well, what have you done there? Why is this unique? And I tell you, a day doesn't go by where we don't communicate. I'm just saying everybody with partners on all kinds of subjects, not to mention the regular meetings that we have. We meet, the implementation group meets every 2 weeks. The advocacy group, which monitors how we deal with the federal and the state, and all the advocacy work meets monthly. There's a lot of interaction constantly, but this communication occurs continuously. And I'll say this, and one of my favorite lines out of Cool Hand Luke. Many of you know the line before I say it, right? What does he say is, somebody was rolling down the hill. What we have here is a failure to communicate, right? Exactly. So that's, I tell you, you look at the issues we deal with so much of what we deal with, and when we have a problem, it's usually, not always, but it's usually a communication issue. And so that communication is paramount. Anyway, wonderful relationships, great program. I can't say enough about the city, state, and county in terms of working with them. And they've helped us, representing the railroad industry, they've helped us learn the processes here in Chicago, and I think do a very good job. One of the things that we'll talk about, the three projects we'll talk about are located, the first one at the top is the WA1 project north of Ogden Avenue. That is really the project that kind of brought this Get On Board event here today, but we do have other work going on, and then you have other opportunities within the railroad industry to do business. We want to make you aware of if you're interested in that. But this WA1 project, that we call it north of Ogden, is going out for bid within the next year. If you want to look at that project, drive up Western Avenue, and just to the west of Western Avenue, it's a very easy drive, just take each of those roads that goes off to the west of Western Avenue, there between 15th Street and Ketchik, okay? And you can literally drive under every one of those viaducts that have to be replaced. One or two of them, 15th Street gets eliminated, Maple gets eliminated, but you can drive, if you want to get a sense for these projects, just go out there at the end of the day, tomorrow, whenever, and just drive those projects. You'll see 90% of what you're going to see in the pre-bid meeting when that comes up. If you want to get a sense for the type of work, there's a lot of structural work, a lot of steel work, and that job is going to be about 80%, 80 to 90% contract work with a small percentage of force account. We do have other jobs that flips that around, where there's less contract work and there's more force account work. So you'll hear a little bit about the force account work is primarily track and signal work that the railroads by law have to perform with their own union forces. And so then we also have a job to make sure everybody coordinates and communicates, because sometimes you want to do work on a structure, you have to move some track, you have to move some signal system, so that system all has to work together, and that's the project manager's responsibility to make that work. But that's one of the projects you'll hear about, the EW3 project off to the right here, you'll hear about, which is that one in the lower right-hand corner. And then you saw where the EW2 project is there in the middle of 75th Street. And Brent's going to talk about GS19 and P3 a little bit. And then we have the W11 project, which is down here at more toward the bottom of the map around Dalton. And so you have Pullman and Dalton that will go to construction later this year. So, Herb mentioned it earlier, a tremendous amount of freight moves through Chicago. I'll just say this. It's a big business, and every day the terminal handles about 20,000 containers every day. That's just container traffic. That's not the manifest or the unit trains, but that's a tremendous amount of business. And that's how you get all the products you use in and out of Chicago. That's how it moves across the country. As he said, it's now over 7 million containers a day. But that's the freight side of this. Metra runs, pre-pandemic, they were running in excess of 300,000 passengers a day in and out of Chicago. It's a little less than that. It's coming back, but we want to make sure we support the Metra operation. And then Amtrak was running about 90,000 passengers a day, I think, in and out of Chicago. So next thing we'll do is we'll go to talk about the opportunities. And the first, we're going to hear from Union Pacific in terms of the project they have underway, the WA1 project, and Mike, I'll let you have that.
Good morning, Mike O'Connor with Benish representing Union Pacific. This first project is the West Side Gateway WA1 project. It runs parallel to Western, as Bill mentioned, and it's a 2-mile section of track that is currently 10 miles an hour. It's going to be upgraded to 25 miles an hour once the track, signals, and bridge work is completed. As Bill mentioned, this was recently awarded the $70 million infra grant to help replace these aging bridges that are 100 years plus. And it's going to benefit the local neighborhoods and other railroads, Metra, Union Pacific, obviously, CSX, and Norfolk Southern. The total cost for the project is $170 million. There will also be community partnerships, which include DBE percentages on this. There's also going to be workforce development for Chicago Public Schools and education opportunities as well. This pie chart represents the whole project here. Like I said, $170 million for the complete construction, of this entire gateway. And the CREATE partners have contributed $100 million of that. And then the $70 million is coming from the federal infra grant, as Bill had mentioned. And that's going to get us to the finish line for this great project. This is showing a rendering and existing condition. On the left this is Ogden Avenue, looking to the east here. The existing bridge is 6 spans. The new bridge is going to be 4 spans, a little bit more open and have more clearance. That's shown in the rendering on the right. This represents the track layout. North is to the left here. So it's it's a 2-mile section, like I had mentioned. Goes from Fulton, all the way down to 16th Street. On the north end, we tie into the UP Metro line. The south end, we're tying into the intermodal yard for Global One, and then CSX. And this is going to be, in this section for the track, it is double track here, and the contractor is going to be responsible for the subgrade, erosion control, and items like that. The track work, like Bill had mentioned, is going to be by UP forces, and along with the signal work. So in the track sections, this is what the contractors would be responsible for. Moving on to the bridges, this section, this 2-mile section has 18 bridges. Some bridges are going to be fully replaced. Bill had mentioned 2 of them are going to be filled, and other bridges are going to be strengthened and replaced in pieces. So a lot of this construction is going to be very similar to the superstructure that's out there now. And like Bill said, it's near Western Avenue, very easy to go look at if you want to see what the site looks like. Now getting on to the estimated schedule for the project. Advertisement for pre-bid meeting and general contractor pre-qualification is first quarter of 2024. On-site pre-bid is first quarter of 2024. And we're hoping for award to the successful contractor the second quarter of 2024. Then construction would start the fourth quarter of 2024 and continue for 5 years to 2030. Next, I want to talk about contractor pre-qualification process. There's a link to general contractor pre-qualifications on the website. And there will be an advertisement in the Chicago Sun-Times and a link to that address. You can also check on the CREATE website, and if you sign up for the CREATE emails, you would be alerted there as well. General contractors will need to fill out these questions ahead of time and submit them right on the website. And these bids will be reviewed by Union Pacific, IDOT, and FHWA. And then the successful applicant will be notified by UP and then given instructions on how to download bid documents. So that concludes WA1. I'll hand it over to Brett.
All right, let's see if I can figure out this clicker through here today. But welcome again. Thank you for being here. If you guys were here a little bit earlier. Again, my name is Brett Garino, and I am with CSX Transportation's Design and Construction Group. As far as our projects, Bill did mention the 75th Street project, as I did earlier. That is something that is currently underway in construction, nearing completion on stage 1, which was advertised in 2020 and had started construction in 2021. And then stage 2 is under construction. That was advertised, and those contracts were awarded last spring. So we are coming up on 1 year since the award for the 75th Street projects. Our next projects that are coming up, next project that is coming up is the WA 11 project. That is in the south suburbs, I will say, of Chicago, primarily impacting the Riverdale and villages of Riverdale and Dalton. So a little bit about WA 11. As Michael had mentioned and Bill, some of the projects are predominantly track work, and the bid work is a smaller portion of that. WA 11 is a project that follows that model. So the grading, heavy civil grading, and there are actually some roadway improvements. Those will be taking place first, and then following the CSX track and signal forces will come in and implement all of the rail and signal upgrades. So some of the impacts and benefits that are here. We have 5 railroads that are involved in the WA 11 project, CSX being the project lead. It also involves Union Pacific and their Villa Grove subdivision, which is an Amtrak route as well. Parallel to CSX's corridor is the Indiana Harbor Belt's corridor, and then there is a section of track, a secondary track that was formerly Norfolk Southern. Their traffic will be incorporated by trackage rights into the new track configuration that is constructed within CSX's corridor. Primary components in this area, if we go end to end, which I'll show you another picture of here in a moment, from west to east, this project covers 5 grade crossings. So at-grade crossings that are in the villages of Riverdale and Dalton. As I'm sure you guys are well aware, here in Chicago, when there's a grade crossing with a railroad, at some point somebody is going to get stuck waiting for that train. On top of the fact that you have those grade crossings, the footprint of this project also lies just outside of 3 different rail yards. So there is a CSX's Bar Yard, which is our largest freight terminal here in Chicago. Indiana Harbor Railroad, their yard is just south of ours. And then on the south end of the project, Union Pacific's Yard Center, which is an intermodal terminal. So not only do you have just the throughput traffic, but you also have the yard and train building operations that are in this area that all impact the local community, the fluidity across the roadways there, and then geometry that impacts the train speeds. So those are all components that are going to get upgraded, improved, modernized, and make for faster, more fluid movements via rail, and faster, more fluid and safer movements for motorists through the community. The WA 11 project applied and was awarded a CRISI grant that was in 2018. So again, you can see here there is a partnership share. So that is what the CREATE partners have pooled together. And then with the FRA, so this time an FRA grant called the CRISI grant. So those are each splitting the project 50-50 in the way that we are funding construction. So that funding is secured, and it is just a matter of finalizing our design, getting that approved, and putting this project out to bid. So the picture over to the right gives you very, very high level aerial, and you can see, as I mentioned, the rail yard that is in the far upper left corner. That is CSX's Bar Yard, and over on those limits you have Riverdale, so 135th Place, and then Eggleston Avenue. Those are the north and west limits. If you follow the green and red lines, which depict your rail lines through here, you can come south and east and come to the diamonds. That is the Dalton Junction or Dalton Interlocking, which is controlled by the Indiana Harbor Belt, and where we also cross with Union Pacific. So as I mentioned, the communities that are going to see the most benefit from this are Dalton and Riverdale. The project, the main goal is to increase freight train speeds through here. And how are we doing that today? How will we be accomplishing that? Today, CSX runs a double track corridor, or double track mains through this corridor, and we have a rail-to-rail grade crossing or a railroad diamond that crosses the Union Pacific. That crossing is in a curve, and the geometry for that curve limits the speeds that you are able to traverse trains across that interlocking. So what we are going to do is, there were some property acquisitions. CSX had to acquire some property from the Parks and Recreation Department of the villages of Riverdale and Dalton in order to shift our tracks to the north of where they lie today and straighten out the geometry so that the diamonds that are there can lie in a tangent rather than a curve. Additionally, we are going to be extending where our third main terminates at the western and north limits of the project, which is right outside our bar yard in Riverdale. And we will be building a new third main extension, which has a direct connection down to Union Pacific and allows for faster, fluid, more direct routes transferring traffic between CSX and Union Pacific. That also eliminates an older section of Norfolk Southern track, which today is jointed track that operates at 10 miles an hour, and also puts an island in one of the major crossings that is in the project. So the intersection of 138th and Indiana has 3 tracks through it today, but one of those being the Norfolk Southern track, which is far offset and creates a safety hazard for motorists in that motorists have the potential to be sitting between sets of tracks when train traffic comes through there. So at the end of this project, all 3 tracks will be at standard track centers, all protected by crossing warning devices. And then also at that intersection, the project is taking on upgrades to the traffic control devices. And so all of that will be updated, modernized, and interconnected for safety both to the public and then the train traffic as well. Talking about daily trains affected, which clearly affects the community there with those 5 crossings, as I mentioned, but 125 freight trains daily. So that's in a 25 or a 24-hour a day operation split between all of the railroads, and then you have 2 Amtrak trains on the Cardinal service that move through there. As I mentioned, in the project scope, so the picture here is showing 138th and Indiana. You can see the double main track that is CSX, and then in this picture in the configuration, the Norfolk Southern train is, is off to the right. That track will be eliminated and a new track built to replace it at a 15-foot track center off of the existing main tracks that are there today. So we are upgrading and reconfiguring the interlocking, so that is happening by changes in track geometry. There are the mainline track extension giving the direct connection and a series of turnouts both on CSX's tracks and in Union Pacific's tracks, and then upgrades to that signal system will all allow for increased freight speed, so from 15 miles an hour to 30. That is going to clear trains through this area faster, reducing the amount of delay to the community, and also reducing the amount of delay to freight transportation through there. And what we are anticipating right now is to be advertising at the earliest on this project, 4th quarter of this year, with ideally looking to go to construction early next year. And we are finalizing our design and moving towards the design approval phase with IDOT and FHWA and FRA on that project right now. And next, I will pass the mic over to my counterpart, Jeff Page with Norfolk Southern, and he will tell you a bit about the Pullman Junction project.
This is Jeff Page. I am honored to be here to speak about an important project in EW3A. This project is a project to essentially upgrade the existing tracks and signals at Pullman Junction. In doing the track work and the signal work, we're also going to have bid work. The bid work required for this project will include a noise abatement wall about 500 feet long. It'll also include bridge repair work to Stony Island Avenue Bridge, as well as Woodlawn Avenue Bridge in the vicinity. Target bid advertisement, we anticipate 4th quarter this year to advertise this project, beginning construction 2nd quarter of next year, and about a 12-month construction timeline for the bid work. This is a CRISI grant project, so we do have secured the 2020, I believe, CRISI grant, which is a 50-50 split, and then there's an additional extra amount of work that's going to be funded by the public partners within the CREATE program. You can see this location map. It shows the sound wall location up on the right, and you can see the Stony Island Avenue Bridge, which is the Stony Island Avenue is north-south in the middle there, and Woodlawn Avenue Bridge is to the left. And this is a rendering of the bridge before and after for the sound, the sound wall that we're going to construct, R28A sound wall as part of the project. So that is what EW3A, the upcoming work. I do want to say for the professional services people in the room, my favorite part about this program is the mentor trainee aspect of it. And I know for EW2 and EW3B that we're currently working right now, we have partnered with a DBE firm where that professional comes into our consultant's office and works as a team with us, learning about the trade, learning about track design, which truly is an advanced civil engineering role. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Cassandra, would you like to join us up front as Steve, please? And so Cassandra is the DB Labor Compliance Manager with IDOT, and Steve is one of the deputies of operations over at Metra. And we want to take this opportunity now to field your questions, and in particular, I think it's really important to make the point that with regard to the construction, as UP had indicated, there's no reason you cannot start your process now to basically be certified as a contractor. You can start that process now and get that going. And now you have plenty of time before the projects go out to bid to ask questions and to get onto the website and understand the requirements. Also gives you an opportunity to look at E-Rail Safe and understand some of the safety requirements. So going forward, we're going to try to get on time here as much as we can. I think, Jim, we should probably allow maybe 10 minutes for questions, and that'll put us back on time. So do we have a first question by anybody? What are the DB participant goals? And maybe we'll address the question on how DB participation is determined on a given project, if you don't mind, Cassandra, how that is developed.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. The DBE goal is determined by our office once they receive the information of what the project is, the work, scope of the work of the project. They look and they see if they have any scope of work that is DBE participation worthy, where they are willing, ready and able to work in that category. So they categorize the work to make sure that there's a scope of work for the DBE participation categories. Then they calculate and come up with a goal for that project.
All right, thank you. You mentioned civil engineering opportunities. Are there any, in the next 12 to 18 months, are there any CM or design opportunities coming up on any of the projects that anybody's aware of? Anything on, would there be a CM opportunity on the WA1 project, Mike?
Yes, there will be for that, and I don't know when they'll be coming out, but I believe that will be announced on the website.
Okay, all right, thank you. With regard to the WA11 project, Brett, will there be a CM opportunity on the W11 project?
So the W11 CM contract was actually advertised and awarded at the same time that we selected the construction management firm for P3. So that contract was awarded in 2020. In 2020, and we are in the process of getting that team started and on board.
Okay, thank you. Is there going to be a CM assigned to the W1 project? Yeah.
There will be a CM assigned to EW3A, and we are in the process of finalizing that now. And I do want to point out one of the things we are doing as part of construction management for EW3A is we have authority and we have the approval to hire a HCCTP trainee so to learn on the job, if you will, in 500 hours. It's been a 3-month period for that project.
Steve, do you know of any contract opportunities here in the near future with regard to Create or any other projects?
There are nothing that Creed specific related, but Metro does have a host of projects that opportunities do present themselves. We do have a PMO that is managing that currently for us now, but there are opportunities.
And then I had this as a general question, was asked, what are the trades that will be needed for construction? And pretty much it's all the trades, right? It's labor, it's steel workers, it's heavy equipment operators, crane operators, and so the answer to the question is pretty much all the trades that work in the construction industry are part of that.
Yeah, I will add to that, Bill. On the WA11 project, as I mentioned, there are 5 grade crossings. One of those, we are upgrading the traffic control devices. So your actual traffic signals, street lights, as people call them. So a trade that would impact is contractors that are familiar with working with DOTs and constructing, installing those traffic control devices. And that will be interfaced or work in partnership with the railroad signal forces because Apple's locations of traffic control devices are interconnected with the rail signal system so that we have preemption at those crossings as well. So as a train is getting closer to the crossing, our train signals, railroad signals, speak to or communicate with the traffic control devices and preempt the traffic control signals to change to make sure that the intersection is cleared and your gates drop there to protect the intersection. So that's a little bit, that is probably a little more niche than your typical heavy civil to be working with traffic control. That would be another opportunity.
Thank you, Greg. I think we've already answered this regarding another question regarding the CM for WA1. I guess I'll say, watch the website. If you're not registered to get the newsletters, to go onto the Create website and get the newsletters and get the updates from the website with regard to upcoming work. Yeah, this might be more, how does smaller DBEs become a part of a project? I guess maybe that's a question for Brian and Costa Network.
A smaller DBE becomes part of the project.
That was the question.
Well, as long as they are certified in our UCP list, they can become a part of any project, as long as they put in a bid for a project.
So I think again, it's important to understand that in order to participate in the CREATE program, your contractor has to be certified as the prime with the railroad, but then the subcontractors have to be certified within the IDAP DBE program. So the other piece of that conversation is you have to have a relationship, which is the reason for this meeting here today, between the primes and the subs. So if you want to become part of that project, you need to develop a relationship with the primes who will be bidding on that project and be able to perform some of that work.
Exactly. Register for the CREATE online information so you be included in the pre-bid meetings and know where to go to solicit information or bid on upcoming projects or requirements.
awarded the contract.
Thank you, Sandra.
And just in addition, Bill, on that too, so you had mentioned pre-qualifications for DEPs. Prime contractors also have to be pre-qualified with IDOT. So in the public advertisements for any of these projects, both primes and subcontractors have their own pre-qualification.
Yes, the DBs have to be certified.
The question is, will any of these projects have specific MBE or WBE goals in addition to the DBE goals? I'll just ask you, I don't think there are any.
I would say what has been established historically on the projects that are completed or currently underway, and for the goals I think that I already have set for WA 11, no, it is just a general DBE goal. There are not more specific minority goals in addition to that.
Thank you. Another question, are we going to use any alternative delivery methods with regard to CREATE going forward? I probably could figure out who asked this question, but in any event, right now the answer is no with regard to design build, for example. We're using the traditional model, design, bid, build on all the projects. Not to say that wouldn't change in the future, but right now we're going to continue to use design, build. We do have the opportunity to use, design, bid, build. We do have the opportunity now with the legislation that's been enacted recently to do design, build. Right now, with the CREATE partners aren't planning to do any of that. Steve, do you know if Metro is going to be doing any design, build work at this point? Have you heard?
Not specifically, I'll get back.
All right, this is a little more technical on the GIS side. Plans to utilize drones in the future to establish surveying. Really, the question is more about, do you trust the accuracy of drones enough to use them for detailed drawings? So I don't know if there's anybody up here that can answer that question going forward.
Going forward, I will say when it comes to CSX detailed designs, and then also for verification in the field, we still rely on traditional survey. We will use drone surveys as like an additional check, but it is not the basis of our information. We also do use drones for project progress documentation. So just like the adage is a picture says 1,000 words, we CSX have been flying drones on projects as they're in construction, and it is just incredible to see the progress, to really see that project unfold as it is being built. So to look at what the picture, the snapshot's taken before it started, and then just as we continue to see that progress. So we do that for records and documentation throughout the project.
I do know that we did fly the entire CREATE program early on using LiDAR, and then we came back a couple of years ago and we flew 75th Street, and as you know, if you're in the business, the accuracy of those systems improved significantly. At the time we flew 75th Street, we had to use the cameras on the helicopters, and it was right when this transition was occurring with the smaller, more accurate cameras and the bigger drones, right? Where now you can use drones to basically do some of that surveying. So that transition is underway, and I wouldn't be surprised in the not too distant future we'll get to the point that much of that surveying can be done with drones. And frankly, it's good for the railroad because it's that safety issue. You want to minimize people on the ground out there near the trains as much as you possibly can. There's always a hazard. Anyway, that's now concludes this session. It's 11 o'clock. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll reconvene here in a couple minutes with session number 2. Thank you.